Hi. When speaking Korean, if you ever feel like your sentences sound a little bit too direct or too plain, here's a really cool sentence ending that you can try using to sound more natural, more considerate, and oftentimes more polite. And that is using 네요, 네요, or 네 in 반말 or casual language. We introduced this sentence ending or the suffix 네 in level 3, lesson 25 of our curriculum. And we introduced it as a way to say that you are impressed or surprised by something. So for example, you're eating something for the first time and you are tasting it and you think it's delicious, it's good. You say 맛있어요, 맛있어요. In a plain way, 맛있어요, it means it's delicious. But if you say 네 in there, if you add 네 in there, it becomes 맛있네요. And now the sentence carries a little more vibe of I see that it's good or wow, it's good. 와, 맛있네요. So you can carry more excitement or at least more observation vibe in your sentence. But even with 네 in your sentences, in speaking, if you don't use the right tone, you can still sound like you are unimpressed, but just trying to sound impressed, like 맛있네요. But in writing, it definitely helps to use 네 if you want to emphasize the fact that you are surprised or impressed. But this 네, by the way, this is not to be confused with the 네 for yes. That's a different kind of 네. Anyway, back to this 네. This 네 or 네요 can help you sound more considerate and therefore more polite often because essentially what you're doing is you're expressing your observation. So let's call a regular, simple present tense sentence a plain sentence. And when you are with someone and you say a plain sentence, depending on the situation, the listener might feel like you are saying the phrase because you want them to do something about the situation. So for example, let's say you're hungry, right? And you say 배고파요, 배고파요. It just means plainly you are hungry. I am hungry is 배고파요. There's nothing wrong with that sentence. But when, as a listener, when you hear that sentence, like you hear that person, the other person saying it, you're like, so do you want me to do something about it? So 배고파요 can sound like that person is wanting you to do something. But if you say, change it to the 네 sentence and say 배고프네요. So for example, in a more natural tone, 배고프네요. The listener might feel less burdened because it's an observation of the fact that you are hungry or I'm hungry. And maybe as a speaker, I will follow up with a suggestion. So for example, 배고프네요. 뭐 먹을까요? 배고프네요. 점심 먹을까요? So immediately, just by hearing the 네 in the sentence, the listener can feel less burdened. Therefore, it becomes a more considerate sentence. Another example, so you went to a place and you were supposed to see a group of people there and you don't see anybody, so you want to say nobody came. And you can say 아무도 안 왔어요. 아무도 안 왔어요. If you were to say it in this plain form, 아무도 안 왔어요, the listener might feel more burdened than when you say 아무도 안 왔네요. So 아무도 안 왔어요 is more naturally, more predictably followed up by 아무도 안 왔어요. 어떡해요? And 아무도 안 왔네요. It will carry the same kind of meaning, but it's less burdensome on the listener because basically what you're doing is you're just expressing your observation. So do you see what I'm saying? You are, when you say 네, what you're doing is shifting the weight a little bit from, or the center of gravity, center of weight, from the listener focus to kind of between the speaker and the listener. So you're kind of dividing the burden half and half. So 아무도 안 왔네요. So the chances are maybe you will say something about it, maybe you will fix the situation yourself, maybe you will want the other person to do something about it. But if you say 아무도 안 왔어요, it automatically sounds more direct and more like you want something out of that person. So another example, you open the refrigerator, you'd see no milk, an emergency. 우유가 없어요. 우유가 없어요. I'm keeping everything in 존댓말 here, polite language. 우유가 없어요. You look at the other person, if you just end your sentence like that, the listener, the other person might feel a little more burdened than when you would say 우유가 없네요. Again, everything depends on the situation, everything depends on the intonation, how you say it, the tone, but generally speaking, you open the refrigerator and you see no milk. 우유가 없네요. And the listener might more naturally expect you to say 우유가 없네요. 사올게요. 우유가 없네요. 우유 주문할게요. So that's what adding the suffix 네 to your sentences can do to make your sentences sound a little more considerate and more polite because you're lessening the burden on the listener. And this is especially useful when you want to express negative emotions. So for example, frustration, anger, or sadness. So for example, 답답하다. We made a video about this before on our channel, so you can actually type 답답하다 in the search bar on YouTube and see that lesson. But anyway, 답답하다 is like, I'm so frustrated. 답답해요 will be a plain sentence. 답답해요. You are expressing a negative emotion and the listener might feel more burdened and feel more like they have to do something about it. But if you're saying 답답하네요, 답답하네요, you are half expressing your frustration about some situation and half just observing the fact that you're feeling that feeling. So 답답하네요, and then you can go on with the follow-up sentences. 힘들다, to go through tough times or something is tough, hard. 힘들어요, it's very direct as a message to the listener, but 힘드네요, you're just expressing your observation of your own feelings, so there's less burden on the listener. So you understand what 네요 can do, and I want to emphasize that this is especially useful when you are expressing negative emotions because negative emotions can have more weight on the listener's ears or mind. This 네요 can also work as a great way to show your observation and check your understanding without asking a question. So for example, you see your coworker for the first time that day and you notice some brand new shoes and you want to check, are those shoes new? In English you would say either are those shoes new or oh, those shoes are new. In Korean, what you would normally say is 신발 새로 사다. 새로 is like newly. So 신발 새로 사다 is to get new shoes. 신발 새로 사셨어요 would be a question. There's nothing wrong with questions, but you can avoid having to ask a question and still check whether you understood the situation correctly by saying 신발 새로 사셨네요. 신발 새로 사셨네요. I see that you bought new shoes. Is that right? So to wrap it up, 네요 can express your observation, express that you are impressed or surprised, but you can also use it to sound more considerate by naturally shifting the weight of your sentence or question from the listener side to kind of maybe closer toward you or kind of at least in between. If this is a new concept to you, please try implementing this 네요 in the Korean sentences that you write or say, at your next opportunity. And if you would like to learn more Korean through video lessons like this one, please visit us at talktomeinkorean.com and you will find yourself saying, 여기 너무 좋네요. 여기 너무 유용한 레슨들이 많네요. I hope this was useful. And can you write a sentence or sentences using this so and so 네요? Please try in the comments. And then I will see you in the next one. 감사합니다. Bye bye.